Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. It's a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to be with my co-hosts around the horn. We shall travel. Cory, Edge of Edge Realty, Big C, as I like to call him. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Nice.
Very well. Mr. Dwight Millard, Highlands Mortgage, how are you?
No complaints, John. Doing great.
I can see the look on your face. Don't tell me that. I can see it.
You gotta have at least one complaint.
Yeah, but nobody listens anymore, right? You can
Right,
just
right.
complain all you want. Everybody's going, hey, I'll one-up you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Have you noticed that the older you get, the less people want to hear about your problems? Have you noticed that? Yeah, I know. It's like
because there's lots of them, right?
Yeah, they don't hesitate to come to us with their problems, but they don't want to hear ours. See,
Amen.
make friends with AI, and you don't need a human being.
That's right. That's what they're saying, I guess.
All
Yeah.
kinds of
Great.
things, you know?
Yeah.
I love it. Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We do appreciate it. We're going to make this next hour very much worth your while. We're going to recap the stock market very quickly here in a moment. But first, let me tell you our topic for this afternoon. Here's the title. You just inherited a home. Now what? And you're thinking, man, what do you mean now what? I'm going to get a whole bunch of money, right? My finance is like hitting the lottery. Well, hold on. You know, to say the biggest wealth transfer in history, folks, is going to be occurring. And they're right. It's already started. Over the next 10 years, trillions of dollars in property is going to pass from one generation to the next. But the question is, what should you really do? And I underline that word really, if you inherit a home. Do you keep it? Do you sell it? Do you rent it out? Well, today, myself and the boys are going to walk through the financial, the tax, and the emotional decisions that can make or break your inheritance. And we all deal with this on a regular basis, by all means, especially Cory. And this is a discussion that we have that takes, in real life, I'm talking, that takes Cory a lot of fact finding, right? I was telling someone today, the typical scenario I get, and I'd love to hear yours very quickly, is, you know, the kids inherit the property. You know, you got one parent left, that parent dies, you got the property now, and 2 out of the 3 siblings, let's say, they want to keep the property, and you always have that one sibling that says, no, I want to be cashed out. And then those 2 siblings go, well, wait a minute here, that's not what mom and dad wanted, right? We have family memories here, we all grew up, we had Christmas here. No, I want to be cashed out. So then those 2 siblings go, I got to call Dwight and refinance this thing to get some cash. And then, I mean, it goes on and on and on from there, right, Cory?
It does, and we'll go into the points, but then you go to what is the structure. Somebody passes away. If they have a trust, then the structure of what's supposed to happen will be in the trust. If they don't, then you get to go to probate court, more than likely, and get up to a judge. And so every beneficiary has a certain amount of rights, and if it's a trust, those rights will be kind of spelled out. If you go to court and have to go through that probate scenario, then they all, I think, and I might be wrong on this, they all have equal rights, right? So does one always trump the other? No, but you know, John, and I'm sure you've seen it too. I've seen siblings, and I deal with them all the time, that are the best of friends. As soon as the last parent is gone, here come the attorneys, and here comes the fight, and it gets nasty, and it's unfortunate that it happens that way, but not every single time, but most of the time, that's how it goes.
I agree. I just told that to a client this morning. We were doing a review, and I said we're going to get their living trust up to date, and actually created. They don't even have one. And I said that exact same thing, Cory. I said I have seen the best of siblings break apart because of financial, right? And so once again, and that's why, we do so many shows, and we'll be doing many more on the importance of estate planning, because that can be avoided through proper estate planning, proper titling, having written instructions, i.e. via living trust or revocable living trust, having those instructions written out. Dwight's going to get this portion, Cory's going to get this portion, John's going to get this portion. And by the way, as I told this client, you guys know this, if you contest it, Dwight, if you contest, mom and dad's estate, guess what? You're going to get $1.
Nothing.
Right?
Zero.
Well, no, you get $1. You get $1.
Okay,
I think legally they have to have $1 in there, but you get $1, and so that stops a little bit of it. But it's a tough situation, because you go from this emotion. I've seen it with clients. You go with it from the emotion of like, okay, yeah, mom and dad are gone. Boo hoo hoo. Wow, mom and dad own this $1 million house free and clear, and it's me and my sister, right? So we're going to get $500,000 each. Well, hold on. There's a lot of things, and that's what we're going to cover today. There's a lot of things, and we're going to kind of be starting this off by talking about the reality of it, right? It's not as easy and as simple as you think it is, but hopefully you'll have a great understanding. I know you will. Not hopefully, you're going to have a great understanding by the time the show's done. Dwight, did you have any personal stories you want to share real quick?
No, except for, the family thing is real, right? I mean, I guess the question I would have, and we can do this now or later, but in a trust, the trustees, do they carry more weight than a normal sibling?
I'm not an attorney. John's not an attorney, but
Right.
the trustee, the successor trustee, if you will, is supposed to carry out the function of the trust. They don't get any more wherewithal to do this, do that, anything else. They have the same rights as the other beneficiaries because typically they are beneficiary. But John, tell me if you see this too. I see a lot of times where it's usually the eldest son or something, like whoever the parents thought had the more financial, whatever. The parents will lay it out, and maybe once they're gone, that person says, I don't necessarily agree with this, and they'll start going down a different path. Then you have to get into court, unfortunately, and force them back onto the path that mom and dad wanted them to go.
Because to your point, Dwight, let's just real quickly, let's use the three of us as an example. Okay, we're brothers, and let's say we're going to inherit $1 million paid in full property, right? Mom and dad selected me to be the trustee, or would I become the executor, right? So mom and dad died, and let's say they wanted it, 34% to me, 33 to you, 33 to Cory. Okay, so pretty simple, right? But what if Cory goes, man, I remember back on my 21st birthday, dad and I were sitting around having a couple beers, and dad said, hey, you're my favorite son. I'm going to give you 50%. And maybe he even wrote it down. That's what Cory's talking about, Dwight, where these things, even with a trust, right? These things can go sideways. But I, as the executor and the one that's legally obligated, remember that I'm legally obligated as the executor of this estate to adhere and follow the wishes of mom and dad in this trust that they wrote out. If I don't do that, now guess what? Dwight, you can sue me, Cory can sue me, right? And anybody else, because I'm not following, quote, the letter of the law via the trust. And so that's where it gets really messy. And then Cory, right? We can go down this rabbit hole real quick. Hey, you know what? As I was telling this client today, I've seen, and I know you guys have too, I've seen it to where the estate is such a mess when there's a lot of real estate involved. That executor, I'll use myself in this example, has to quit their job, right? Because there's so much involved in this liquidating of the real estate, the stock market accounts, the distribution, the accounting of the distribution, etc. I don't have time to work my normal job. So guess what? I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to just focus on mom and dad's estate for the next year. Well, hey, you know what? I still got to eat. So guys, I want you, i.e. the trust or the estate, I want you to pay me $5,000 a month. You're going, like hell, we're going to do that. It's not in there, right? Right, Cory?
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up, because if you're going to get paid, it has to be in the trust.
That's right.
And if it's not mentioned in the trust, you can't do it unless a judge allows it. So most trusts will say yes, or they'll say no. And that's one thing, as a beneficiary, if you're not the person in charge, that's one thing you want to look at. So you should have a copy of the trust, even if you're not in charge, because you have the right to read it. And yeah, trust me, the courts are with these little arguments back and forth. And, I'm dealing with one right now for one of our attorney clients, and the court basically took jurisdiction over the trust because the issues were so they were fighting so bad. The court said, we now are going to be in control, and we're going to dictate how this rolls. And they're doing it, in accordance with the trust.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you take that scenario, and let's say Cory and I are really close brothers.
Yes.
And we don't, particularly like the way you're interpreting the way mom and dad. Can 2 out of 3 trump the? I mean, so
through a judge, but you can't just do it on your own. Correct.
And you don't know if you're going to win with a judge, but no,
correct.
Just by your own and ganging up against me 2-on-1. Nope.
Yep.
That's why you have a trust.
Yep.
That was the dad's example, or dad's wishes in our example, that he wanted that money to be split 34, 33, 33. And then you come back to Dwight and go, you know what, John, a couple years have gone by. Where's my money? And matter of fact, I don't think you've been spending the money correctly, keeping the bills up and all that stuff. So I request an audited financial statement of the trust of the estate. Cory's shaking his head. Yep. Right. And then do you think I'm going to like you anymore as my brother when you start accusing me of stealing money? Nope. So now here comes the in family fighting.
What do you think just off the top of it, what do you think the percentage of this goes to a court?
That's a good question. I have no idea. How about you, Cory? Have you seen any stats?
25?
I think I don't know what the number would be, because I think the vast majority of them settle before they get into the point where judges don't like to make decisions. They want people to figure it out. And so a lot of times the threats back and forth, and especially if you're that successor trustee and you're like, oh man, these guys got a point, and your attorney's going to figure that out. He's going to be like, you might want to settle this up or do something, because as that successor trustee, and we can get into it later, but you have a higher burden. You have fiduciary duties. You can get in big trouble. It's not just like slap on the wrist and give the guy $5. No. You've got some major problems if you are doing bad things.
Yep, you got it. And usually siblings will find out if you are, or at least
Absolutely.
accuse you of it. We've all seen that. So very complicated topic. We're going to try to simplify it with a lot of things to talk about. So we're going to come back to a quick recap on the market. Not a lot happened today, a little bit of weakness. And we'll tell you what the reasons were, and then we'll get into our topic. You just inherited a home. Now what? Let's turn it over to Kristen Snow right now, Traffic Center. Hello. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH with Cory of Realty, Dwight Millard of Highlands Mortgage. Once again, our topic, you just inherited a home. Now what? But before we get to that, let's recap the market real quick. Tough day today. Just could not get any traction. 92-point loss on the Dow, down 0.20% to 46,602. Nasdaq gave up 163.67%. S&P lower by 26 points, about a 0.38% decline. What was the problem? That was the issue. There really wasn't anything. There was no specific real negative news on anything today. I think investors are getting a little concerned. With this drag on, what are we going into day 8 now? Today was day 7 of the government shutdown. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I mentioned this on my stock update this morning. Bloomberg reported at 8:05 this morning Pacific Standard Time that the Trump administration is considering not paying furloughed government workers because they said the last time we had the government workers go on furlough, they put a provision in the rule/law that said after, and I'm going to paraphrase, after a government shutdown, there has to be a certain provision in the new rule that says, okay, these employees can come back and they get their back pay.
So it's not automatic.
Right. It's not automatic. That's what everybody said. Like, you got to be kidding me. So now, I don't know. I mentioned this to Ross this morning. The market seemed to roll over right after that news came out. And I saw nothing in any of my sources indicating that was a specific reason. I don't know if it was just a coincidence or what, but can you guys imagine what a disaster that would be GDP wise, right? Because remember, we lose 1/10 of GDP for every week the government shut down. So now we've already, been shut down a week. We've lost 1/10. Can you imagine if all these hundreds, almost 1 million people, right? 780,000, something like that, don't get paid while they're gone? And how forgiving are lenders under a shutdown like this?
Well,
are they at all?
I don't think they are at all. You're on a contract. I mean, we don't want to get back into that again, right? Skip 3 payments and we'll talk to you.
Right.
That just doesn't make sense. But it's going to be interesting, John, because I think what they had to vote at last night, I think, to approve it in order to get paid this next pay period, right?
Right.
So they're not going to get they're not going to get paid.
Right.
And that's when it's really going to start to matter.
That's my point.
It's really going to start to matter. And, I think it was kind of interesting how the Trump administration did kind of pivot a little bit and now put it all back on. It feels like, the Senate and the House, going, hey, this is in there. I mean, so now I don't know. I mean, eventually they're going to get it resolved, but this is getting problematic. I mean, of course, now I have my first USDA loan, right? And they're not even open, right? Of course. Isn't that just Murphy's Law? So you go on the site and it says, sorry, due to, you go right on USDA, sorry to the government closed down.
So when you go to the USDA site, what's the
you can't get in. You're just,
what does the email say? Because it seems like every government entity has a different response when you log in.
It was just like, due to the government shutdown, we are unable to. It didn't blame. It just that
some
we're
of those
not.
Are hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
I don't know, but it's just gonna. You said it perfect. The longer this goes, the tougher it's gonna be. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to unwind. It's gonna be tough.
Yes.
Yeah. They've got to get this figured out.
Well, and then of course we heard today, for those of you that are traveling, that a number of air traffic controllers are calling in sick. They're not reporting because they're not getting paid. So like, I'm sick today, I'm not coming in. So air travel is really starting to, slow down dramatically. There was yesterday at Burbank Airport, they went like 3 or 4 hours with no air traffic controllers. The air traffic was being directed out of San Diego, the air traffic control center in San Diego. That's scary. And then you had the transportation secretary on CNBC this morning going, hey, it's all right. Safety is always first. I'm like, oh boy, I feel sorry for anybody that's having to travel right now. I really do. Dwight, quickly, let's hit the mortgage, because I've got a question I want to throw your direction regarding zombie mortgages. I read a fascinating article today. We'll go to break, and then we're going to come back and tackle this. So where do we finish out on the 30-year today?
So right where we kind of left off last week, 6.38 on the 30-year fixed mortgage. I mean, that's 6.39, 6.38. That's where we're at. 5.90 on the 15. And then the FHA VAs are 6.08 and 610. So, I mean, no movement. Yeah. But it's interesting, after our last conversation last week, Jon, I'm getting more and more questions, especially from builders and realtors, saying, what is going to take to get these rates down? You know, Jon?
Yeah, that's a tough one to
answer. Mean, who's going to go buy the sleepy little bond over there? Right. Nobody.
Yeah, unless the stock market corrects, then you'll see larger allocation.
But being a businessman, is there a way, and I'm just trying to think outside the box, where Trump could create some energy in the bond market where people would want to buy bonds for any reason?
There could be. I could give you a million reasons why.
Okay. So there's
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not just the government, because that's what we did the first. Right. We don't want to use the government. How do you?
Government's gonna have to be behind it, but I could think of so many ways.
Okay, so there are some little tools out there that could. Okay,
absolutely. Yeah, they just don't feel they're at that point yet.
Mm.
All right, 10-year yield today, to Dwight's point. I'm surprised you didn't budge at all, Dwight, on the 30-year. You're down 4 basis points on the 10-year. At a yield of 4.13. But real quickly, Dwight, I got to throw this in. Just give me about a minute or two answer, if you would be so kind. There's a great article in Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal today, and it's talking about zombie mortgages. And it's been a long time. We need to do a show on this because I found it very fascinating. But I want to see what your experience is. So this is, if you don't know what a zombie mortgage is, so Dwight just mentioned about the financial crisis, right? So you go back to the financial crisis, 08, 09. You'd get a loan first, and then let's say you get another, whatever, $125,000 for a second to make up that entire amount due, so you don't have to come out so much out of pocket. So far, so good, Dwight?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, that second mortgage, really, the financial crisis happens. That second mortgage, as we all know, balloon came due. Your new term with a higher interest rate kicked in. That's what caused one of the results of the financial crisis of 08, 09. People couldn't do it, so you let that second go. So many companies came in and issued a 1099. I remember Cory talking about this. Issued the 10C, I believe it is, where the lender on that second forgave the loan. So, your house is not worth it. You're saying you can't afford it, so they write it off. And then what they do is they turn around and sell it to collection agencies. So let's say they just wrote off this $120,000 second mortgage. Homeowner goes, I got the 1099, and right, Cory, they had to pay tax on that money.
Absolutely.
Right? Remember it?
That forgiveness.
Well, now they pay taxes on it, and they don't hear anymore. They don't get any statements from the lender, Dwight. They don't get anything. And then all of a sudden, now what's happening? These collection agencies are buying these loans for like $2,000 or $3,000, right? $100,000 plus loan that was written down. They're buying it for like $2,000. I mean, literally cents on the dollar. Now they're going back after these people saying, you owe this money. I mean, again, I want to do a whole show on this at some point, but have you heard anything, Dwight? Is this prevalent? Because this article made it sound like it's really starting to raise its ugly head.
Yeah, well, those collection companies are out there buying anything.
Yes.
Right? Because they know they have you held hostage. Yes. Whether or not they can collect or not, Cory, correct me. If it's
in many cases they are. Yeah,
they are collecting
on the house.
Yeah. They have the legal right to collect.
In some states they do. There's others that
so if they do, that changes. But if they don't, hey, what do I care? I bought it for $2,030. They will settle at some point in time with you, the consumer, because you've locked them down. You can't do anything.
Some of these collection agencies are generating over a 3,000% return. 3,000% return.
As if it wasn't bad enough back then.
As if it wasn't bad. That's what these people are saying. Like, my God, I'm reliving hell again.
But we said this. We said this though back then. Remember that, Cory? We talked about the seconds are going to resurface at a different point in time in a different way.
Well, yeah, and typically, I didn't read the article, but typically, when the first lender writes it off, you get a 1099 and you pay the tax, it's done as far as you're concerned. Now, they don't do what's called reconvey it, which gets it off of the public record, so it stays there. So then somebody's got to go clear it up. So, like if that were to happen to somebody I know or me, let's go to court, because you can't. That's double dipping. You can't double dip on that. And there have been investment strategies, a couple guys here locally pushing stuff. We can buy all these seconds, knowing that maybe you're only going to collect on 1 or 2% of them, not because you have the right to, but because people get panicked.
Yes,
but that's the bet, right? Like, okay, well, I'll spend 100,000, and if I can get two of them to pay me 150,000,
Right.
that's a great return,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a slime ball way to make money.
It really is, man. Oh man. All right, guys. Thank you for that deviation there. Let's turn it over to Jack Saban. He's got news, traffic, and weather. Hey, Jack. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH with Cory of Edge Realty, Dwight, Millard of Highlands Mortgage. Once again, a 92-point decline on the Dow, lower by 1 on the NASDAQ, and a pullback of 26 on the S&P. All right, you hit the lottery. You inherited a home. Now what? Is it all fun and games and profitability? I hope it is, but it may not be. And that's what we're here to tell you about this afternoon. I want to start off with some stats, guys. According to Sorelli Associates, okay, let's talk about the great wealth transfer. According to Sorelli Associates, $84 trillion in assets is expected to pass down through estates between 2024 and the year 2045. $84 trillion. Of that, $16 trillion is going to transfer within the next 10 years. Roughly half of this wealth is tied to real estate, particularly in California, Florida, Texas, and other high appreciation areas. 45% of Americans age 55 plus own their home outright, meaning millions of properties are going to soon change hands. And finally, a Fidelity survey found that 1 in 3 inheritors sell an inherited home within the first year, often without understanding the tax implications. Okay? Now let's start with some reality, folks. The emotional side. You just lost a loved one. Let's just say it was, mom was the final remaining parent. So mom just passed. Then you have to make a major financial decision quickly, right? You just got this house, you got bills you got to pay on it, right? Even if it's paid off, you got property taxes and utilities, etc. But why this whole area is really becoming so very popular that we need to talk about it is because the boomers, my generation and Dwight's generation, we are the last year of the boomer generation. We hold over 50% of U.S. household wealth. And much of that, as I just said, is tied up in wealth. Cory, let's get down to the action. What are the immediate steps that someone needs to follow after they inherit the home? They just found out, trust, reading of a will, whatever it is, you just inherited this. Let's pick a hypothetical value. Let's say a $700,000 house. What do we do?
The first thing that you need to do is figure out how that is titled. Is there a trust or is there not a trust, meaning you're probably going to have to go through probate. Even if there is a trust and you're the smartest person that you know, but you have no legal background, you need to have an attorney. In a lot of cases, John, it's the attorneys or the attorney shop that drafted the trust. Go back to them, talk to them so they can explain not all trusts are created the same. They all have different little provisions here and there. And it's not as if, hey, I read a trust 5 years ago, so I already understand how this works. These things some can be incredibly complicated. Some of them are pretty easy, but you need to have a third party, be it an attorney, a CPA, somebody with an understanding to explain the trust to you. But the first thing I always do when I get a phone call, and I get these calls a lot, they say, hey, my dad just passed away. Somebody gave me your number. We're thinking we might sell the property. The first question they ask is it in a trust? Or usually I'll go to the assessor and I'll find out ahead of time, but is it in a trust or is it not in a trust? Because that's going to determine which path we have to go to right away. Probate, not probate. Either way, my recommendation is always have an attorney involved to get you through it.
Let's say that it is going to go it's just owned in mom's name. Mom's passed. We were going to go to probate. What's the path there?
Again, my recommendation is have a good probate estate attorney start the process, get you through the process. You have to notify the creditors. You have to notify the other beneficiaries. You have to take an inventory of what's there. If there's a will, I think it will name who's going to do these things. But if there's not, then the court can name who's going to be the administrator, if you will.
Is it a
So
bloodline?
it doesn't have to be a bloodline, but typically it's a bloodline.
Very common.
And that person is going to be in charge of securing the property, itemizing everything, trying to figure out what's there. And you're going to have to report to the court. So when you have a probate situation, all that reporting goes back to the court. So if you get somebody that's not on the up and up, they're going to be in trouble with the court system, if that makes sense, because they have to file these reports. I hear it all the time. Like, I don't want to go through probate. That's going to take a decade. I mean, unless you have the most complicated estate ever, it will not take that long. Typically, the ones I deal with here, and again, I get them after the attorneys are already involved, and now we're going to start selling some assets. A year, maybe, a year and a half. Like, it depends. Is there a bunch of fighting, no fighting, or is it pretty straightforward? These things don't take that long.
Cory, who's paying the property taxes, the utility bills, etc., under that probate situation?
Well, if there's money in the trust, which a lot. So here's the other, or I'm sorry, in the estate. Here's the other fun part of it. until the court names you as the person that gets to handle the estate, you don't get access to any of the bank accounts or any of the other stuff. So if I've had it happen both ways, typically that administrator is going to be paying those bills, the mortgage, the taxes, the power, all that stuff. They do have the right to get reimbursed, and the judges will usually grant it. Or if they can get in fast enough, and let's say it's going to take 2 months to get access to the bank accounts, if there's no money otherwise to pay it, the chances of a bank foreclosing or any drastic things happening in 2 months, that's kind of the calculation you do. Say, hey, if you can get this, if you can get access to mom's account and that's where the $100,000 is to take care of this stuff, we can explain that to a bank. They're not going to take your house in 2 months.
And folks, again, you want to get an attorney involved as soon as possible. But to that bank account issue, Cory, I've ran into this situation. If your mom in this example did not have a living trust, because hopefully she did, but if she didn't, if she did, she probably named you as, again, executor / trustee, where you would have access to that bank account. You go into the bank, show the trust documents, and 9 times out of 10, you have access to it to pay these bills. But let's say she did not have, she dies intestate, meaning without a will, without a trust, etc. Again, good luck getting your hands on that money. For those of you, at least if you don't listen to our advice about consider speaking with an estate planning attorney, getting a trust. If you don't do anything, what I'm seeing, Cory, becoming popular is at least make it a TOD, a transfer on death bank account, right? So that tells the bank, okay, this person doesn't have a trust, but let's say, Cory's my dad and I'm his son. He dies without a trust. If it's a TOD account and I'm the beneficiary of that, when he, at least I can go into the bank and go, hey, this is a TOD account. I'm the one that's supposed to transfer to. The legal department of the bank will look it over and most likely grant me access so I can use that money and pay bills and so on and so forth. So I'm seeing a lot more of that where people are like, and I don't know why, they just don't want to mess with a trust, but at least TODs better than not having anything.
But Jon, would you take that same principle and then add somebody to the house? I mean, I know we're getting kind of off top.
Yeah. Cory's shaking his head. No, I see that done a lot too. Cory, I'm going to let you real quickly answer. That's usually, we're seeing it done, but usually not the best.
So there's different ways you can do that. I've seen it where they add people to the house, but now you're getting involved in all these different tax ramifications, right? We haven't talked about the stepped up basis and all this other stuff. So you start adding people to the house, you're creating an issue there. The other thing that you can do in Nevada, and maybe you can do it in other states, is it's a transfer on death deed. So if, Jon, you're my dad and doesn't look like you're going to make it over the next year, you sign a deed to transfer the house to me upon your death. I just had to deal with this last year. The thought process behind it for these clients and other people is, hey, we're going to avoid probate because it's such a drastic, pain in the butt process, which it's not, but that's what they think. Well, guess what? No title company is going to give you title insurance with a transfer on death deed until you hit the statutory requirements for creditor noticing. And to do the creditor noticing, you got to go through the probate and Medicare, Medicaid, all these different things. So it's like anything else in life. If it sounds too good to be true, just do it the way that 99% of the people do it. And
you just touched on something real quick, brother, that I got to hit really fast. And that is, if your mom in this example was a recipient of Medicare, Medi-Cal, any of the government or state funded programs, most likely you can't sell that house free and clear and take those proceeds. You run the risk of having to pay, you as the son in this example, paying the government back some or all of the money they've taken, right? You see that a lot, Cory?
Yeah. And that's where, if you get a good attorney and you go through the process, I've seen those amounts negotiated down to pennies. Yes. But if you just try to, pardon my language, screw them out of it, it's like screwing the IRS. They're going to come after it. They're going to find it. You may have some personal liability there that you don't.
That's right. So you see, folks, it's not, like Cory just said, it's not as easy as you think it is when you inherit a house. All right, we come back. We're going to hustle. We're going to talk about getting the appraisal, reviewing the debts and liens. We kind of skip past that one, and then meeting with the tax professional, financial planner, etc. Let's wrap it up with Kristen Snow right now, Traffic Center. Hello, Kristen. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. If you missed any of this show or any of our others, please don't forget to pick up our podcast at your favorite podcasting company, i.e. iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever it may be. Let's get some phone numbers going so if you can reach these fine gentlemen and their incredible years of expertise. Mr. Edge, start us off, please. Thank you, sir. Mr. Millard.
Yeah.
Thank you, fellas. Do appreciate it. All right. We've been discussing, you just inherited a home. Now what? Let's recap very quickly. So as Cory said, first immediate step, number one, you confirm title and ownership structure. Is it a trust or held in a trust, a will, joint tenancy? Secondly, get a professional appraisal, right? Take it away, Cory.
Absolutely. And our friend Richard Lace is the expert on these things. Anytime we run into an issue, that's the number I always give out. And
Lace Appraisal.
These are going to be date of death appraisals. So, for instance, if the family member passed away a decade ago and nobody got around to doing any of this, you can call Richard and say, "Hey, my dad passed away 10 years ago. I need to figure out what the value of the house was in." And through all his magic and numbers and all the stuff he has, he can tell you what the house was worth back then. And you're going to need it or you're going to want it for tax purposes because you get what's called a stepped up basis. So, if mom and dad bought the house in Southern California for $20,000 in 19, I don't know, 55 or whatever it is, right on the ocean, and they spent every penny they had to do it, and now it's worth 20 million. Well, you get a stepped up basis to the point of what it was valued at on the date of their death. If you then turn around and sell it for that amount, there is no tax. If you sell it for more than that amount, you'll only be taxed on the date of death value and what the sale value was. So it's an incredible,
less any expenses such as brokerage commissions, etc.
absolutely, yeah. And so it's an incredible tool that people don't. And I've had two people I've talked to, and this sounds morbid, who had very big estate holdings that they were thinking about selling this and that. And both of these gentlemen at different times said, "You know what, for the sake of my kids, I'm just going to hold it till I die, because then at least they get the stepped up basis."
Yep, that's what happens. Folks, a real common real estate strategy is this. So you understand Cory's example, right? You buy it for 100. When you die, it's worth $1 million. So you normally, you'd have a $900,000 capital gain. If you owned it longer than 12 months, you start at about 20% capital gains rate plus state and maybe a little Medicare capital gains. So let's just say 20%, right? Big substantial capital gains if you sold that property while you're alive. Now, of course, if it's primary, you get the $250,000 or $500,000 tax-free exclusion, so on and so forth. But where it gets really interesting, and Cory's just a pro at this, if you have a rental property, again, a lot of people, they'll do what's called a 1031 tax deferred exchange. We'll do some shows on that where they just, right, Cory, 1031 from one property to another, to another, to another. And let's say it was the same example. They started with a $100,000 rental and now they've 1031 multiple times or maybe just once, but now it's worth $1 million. Guess what? They die. You get the same thing. You get the stepped up basis on there. So they 1031, they moved to bigger properties or whatever the case was to justify that 1031. But same thing. They wait till they die. And you hit it right on, Cory. That is a very, very popular estate planning / real estate strategy. I've heard clients go, "I'm never going to sell it. I'm just going to, on rental property, I'm just going to keep 1031 exchanging it till the day I die. Then my kids are going to get the stepped up cost basis."
Well, and the other thing too to remember, not to get all complicated, but let's say that happens. You've got a property that's been exchanged multiple times. You get it. You decide, you know what, Dad was pretty good at this, so now I'm going to do that. When you take the title of that property, it's in your personal name. So if you're married, your spouse doesn't get to go on there. But I had this last year, John, with one of your clients, and it was the first time I had seen it. He held that as an individual person inside their revocable trust, and it was a separate set aside. So technically his wife had no control over it, but it was still in their trust. And they had a pretty savvy accountant that had it all set up. And this gentleman, I remember I sold him the property in 1031 after I think it was his dad passed away. We sold it again. This was 10, 12 years later. Now he moved it from Reno up to, I think they went somewhere up in Montana or somewhere close to that. So it was just this all boils down to it's worth the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it's going to cost to get the experts to come in and say, "Hey, absolutely, this is how you do it. This is how you do it." Because I've seen people piss away inheritances.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. All righty, folks, we just touched the surface. We'll continue on this topic at another show. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on the Jon Sanchez Show. See you, boys.